Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Sarah Clayton-Jones is a coach and the founder of Read to Lead, which is a special kind of business book club. It came about when it was pointed out to her that her pile of books to read should be for self-development, not shelf development. Thank you very much for being my podcast guest today, Sarah.
Thank you, Liz, for having me. Very, very chuffed to be here.
Now, you're the founder of Read to Lead and a coach, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But what has your career journey been? Have you always wanted to work in sort of coaching and development area?
No, actually, I wouldn't say. Probably the principles underneath that around, learning and growing have always been there, and interest in people and behaviours. But I started out in marketing, which, is not too dissimilar, I guess. It's, understanding what drives people to purchase and how to influence people and their behaviours. But yeah, I started out in marketing originally, agencies, very direct marketing. So, good schooling, if you like, very focused on performance and results. And then went on to corporate before then setting up my own thing. So corporate kind of more to get the commercial side of business, and then, doing my own business and moving into coaching from there.
So what was it that inspired you to become a coach, and what was the process that you went through to get there?
So I guess as I came out of corporate and set up my own thing, in business, you tend to do what you've always done. So I became a marketing and brand consultant. But I found that when I was working with, and I was doing it with small business owners, so owners of SMEs, and, it's all great, creating great strategies, great brands, but I found that sometimes they weren't always getting implemented. I felt that there was sometimes not always, the owner wasn't always behind it or fully bought in. And so a lot of that came down to, their own mindset. And so I brought in coaches to work with business owners to help them overcome their own barriers and upskill themselves. And that's when I kind of saw the real, the value of coaching and the impact that it had, and really opened my mind up to it. I guess at the end of the day, you can have a great strategy, but it's the people that deliver it. And so developing the people is really important. So yeah, from that, really, really became interested in that whole area. And I just went along to a kind of introduction session, really, to becoming a coach at a company called the Coaching Academy, which is a well-known coaching organisation, training organisation. And yeah, from there, went on to train, just fell in love with it, loved it, just what it was all about. Went through then the process of training. So I did my personal performance accreditation, my DISC personality profiling, and also NLP and neuroscience as well. I think the thing I found, there's so many coaches out there, and it's an unregulated industry, that for me, it was quite important then to go through that process of getting that qualification, to have that substance, really, and that credibility.
Yeah. And how long did all of that take?
It was about 3 years in total, to do those three elements of coach training, personality, and then the NLP. And actually, when you do it, you realise that you're as much kind of working your own self out and applying it to yourself before you even think about applying it to other people. So it's almost like a self-discovery journey.
That sounds really useful.
Yeah, it was. If nothing else, to do it, and people do train to become a coach, to not necessarily become trained, to become a coach, but not necessarily become a coach, but get so much value out of, developing themselves and their mindset and their own path for their future, which isn't necessarily just coaching, but it's a fascinating, and I think the underpinning thing to it all is that learning journey. It's an ongoing thing. You don't just sort of do the 3 years and that's done. It opens up another world of lifelong learning, really, which ignited that love of learning for me, for sure, which you kind of forget from school days, don't you? You still read or you do bits and bobs, but it was, many years ago that I was at university, and it was lovely to invest that time in yourself again.
Yeah. I think you sort of get out of the habit of learning in a way, don't you?
Mm, mm, you do. You do, and it's a very different mindset because you have to be comfortable with being rubbish.
Yes.
It is. It's learning is hard because it's hard, but that's
Mm,
why it's worth doing, isn't it? Most things that are worth doing are tricky. But yeah, it kind of have to break down sort of barriers or um, ego, perception,
hmm.
whatnot, and build from the ground up, which I think is a fascinating process in and of itself,
Yeah.
and sets you up then. I mean, we're all life learners, aren't we? But I think yeah, we get out of the habit,
Hmm.
and it probably is habits are a big part of it, I think.
Yeah. Now, as well as you're running your own business, I know that you also do some work for the FSB, the Federation of Small Businesses. So
Mm,
tell us something about
mm.
that.
Yeah, I mean, the FSB is a great organisation because of all of the lobbying they're doing and the support
Mm,
that they provide. It's huge, and I hadn't become aware of it until I opened the door to the entrepreneurial world, if you like. It's always these things you don't necessarily know about
yeah.
until you kind of step into that world, and they are doing some incredible work to support businesses. So um, for me, that was something to get involved in as part of my learning as a business owner. But the community side of it is a big part of it as well. The networking and the opportunities to meet other business owners
Mm,
was a big incentive. I guess the reason for hosting it as well is uh, I know it's a typical thing to say, but there is a thing about giving something back, isn't it?
yeah.
Being
Yeah.
part of something where you are helping your own self and your own people, if you like, other entrepreneurs that are trying to do the same thing.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about Read to Lead. So what is it and how did it come about?
Yeah, so read to lead. I mean, what is it? It is a community of business professionals that want to learn to grow themselves and business and grow in business
Mm,
ultimately. How it often business owners, business professionals are so frustrated. We don't have the time. We're wearing multiple hats, and there just isn't the time to fit in that personal development. So a key part for me was creating something that was manageable, that
mm,
was about bite-sized learning, first and foremost. And then secondly, I think you can learn, um, but what's the point if you don't do anything with it? So a big
yeah.
part of it, and this came about through my coach training, is about turning learning into action. So those are the two fundamental parts of it.
Mm,
Um, and community, bringing other business owners together, you learn so much from each other, from your real life experiences, and actually taking the theory of learning and putting it into how other people have applied that, and learning from each other, as well as the support that you get from that accountability
mm,
from seeing other people's progress. It kind of spurs you on. So the community piece is a big part of it. Now, where did it come from? Well, by the name, you can sense that there's a reading element, a
hmm.
book element, and when I retrained as a coach, I just had this pile of books that were just building up, and I remember someone saying to me, "It's Sarah, it's self-development, not shelf development," and that really resonated with me because I was like, "Oh, this book's great, this book's great. I need to read this, I need to read that." And yeah, I was building up a pile of books, but they were getting dusty. They were more becoming a stand for my laptop. I wasn't really reading them, and that it was frustrating me as well. It's kind of like a guilt thing.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I came across Blinkist, which is a fantastic app which condenses non-fiction books into 15-minute summaries. It certainly doesn't replace reading books, but what
mm,
it does is a great way of vetting a book,
yes.
a great way of refreshing on a previously read book, or getting multiple perspectives on a topic. But you can get a summary of sort of 5 or 6 books within an hour on one topic, so it gives you a really good broad perspective and understanding. So that was kind of where it came from, and that tool was the starting. And I set it up in Lockdown, because I guess we were quite isolated then, and I had this pile of books. I'd found Blinkist. I thought other people would really benefit from this, but actually, learning, like I said, is one part of it, but doing something with it, the discussion with like-minded peers, the action taking, the sharing of success was another dimension, another dynamic. So that's where it came from. It's growing. I'm super chuffed, super passionate about Read to Lead. And yeah, it's evolved now. We get authors involved, so we do little bite-sized Q&As with authors, and that again adds another interesting dynamic to everyone's learning and development.
So how does it work? How often do you meet, and where do you meet?
Yeah, so it's online. We meet monthly. We have a theme for the month, which is all business topics, very relevant to the audience. We set a couple of blinks for the month, and we have an author Q&A mid-month, and then we meet towards the end of the month, and we use that session to challenge each other's thinking, share those perspectives, and then agree and to take an action forward. My saying is always, it's great to read the full book, but if you could just blink it in 15 minutes, take one key learning that resonates with you the most, one insight, and then do one thing with it, you're progressing, you're learning, you're moving forward. Because so often we try and read the whole book, we take all these notes, we don't do anything with it, we get frustrated. So by no means am I not saying that reading books is the full book is valuable, but yeah, it's a great support to that learning, and something you can fit in.
Yeah. So who are your members? What kind of sectors are they from? Is it a really broad range of business people?
Yeah, really, a real mix. The mix of industries, of business types, of business sizes as well. What does unite them all is that mindset piece, though. They very much come to Read to Lead because they value learning and development. They're very interested in personal development and growth, number one. And then number two, they share a common sort of trait of being very open and collaborative. So very much about sharing and giving their opinions and supporting each other. So the community angle is a natural part of that, isn't it? But sorry to answer your question. They're very different backgrounds, but very much united on learning and on connecting and working alongside other people, learning alongside similar minded people.
Yeah. And where are your members? Is it just in the UK, or do you have people from abroad too?
No, they it's funny because these things are always small acorns, isn't it? And it started very local. I mean, there's still a very local element to it where we meet up quarterly and go out for dinner or whatnot. But now it's international. We've got members in New York, over in in the States. We've got members in Europe, Finland, Italy, Germany, but still a core group. Naturally started in the UK, but very much I want to grow it to be an international community, because although there's a very similar like-minded mindset, that diversity of thinking and perspectives that you get from different cultures and backgrounds is super important and super interesting when you're discussing themes and topics. I've noticed it when we have different authors coming from the States versus the UK, it's just different perspectives, isn't it? And that culture dynamic is interesting part to that.
Yeah,
that's another layer.
Yeah. Now, the sense of community that Read to Lead provides is clearly very important to you. That comes across. And you said to me before, and we had a bit of a chat a couple of weeks ago, that you feel it's sort of very much a place for organic networking to happen. I just wondered how you think the networking side of it compares to your people going to a conventional networking group.
Yeah, It's very different in that sense, because it's not the sole intention. The soul is not networking. It's building connections, and it's a community, but it's not that traditional networking where you turn up and you've got that 30-second pitch, which is all a little bit uncomfortable. No one really listens, no one really cares, and it feels a little bit contrived. This is quite organic, so people are coming along, learning together, and I think you fast track relationships because there's a vulnerability to learning, so people get to know each other quite quickly as a result, and build good relationships, good understanding, and therefore the understanding of their business, the connection, the relationship follows that. People are doing work together, are referring work to each other, but it feels very organic, feels very natural, compared to sort of a very traditional networking type environment.
That sounds really, really good way of networking, but kind of not networking in a way.
Yeah, I know. It is. It's I very much talk about it, growing your mind and your business bottom line. It has to have results. You have to learn to take action and get results. But also, so it's getting smarter. It's smart business, but it's also smart connections. You're connecting with other people that are like you, and naturally, you build relationships. You're going to do things are going to come of that, aren't they? And I think it's funny, we covered selling not for a couple of months in the summer, and I think selling is got that perspective, hasn't it? That traditional perspective of selling, where the salesman. But it's not really now, is it? Selling is building relationships, having conversations, and I think the same with networking. It's not rock up for your 30-second pitch. It's asking questions, exploring, understanding, looking for synergies. Building communities. I think that's evolving, and it's certainly what I'm trying to create with Read to Lead anyway.
So are there any favourite books that the group have discussed?
Oh yes. Oh, so many favourites of so many. I mean, in a year, I was just doing a review actually, and in the year, you cover 24 books, because we blink 2 a month. So you cover a lot of ground, and there's some real ones that keep coming back. To be honest, they all interweave. They all saying similar sorts of principles at the end of the day, in different ways. But there's some real standouts. So the E-Myth is one that I always recommend any person going into business. Absolutely number one read. Really challenge you to think about whether you want to create a business, or whether actually you want to be more of a consultant or a freelancer. So that's a great one. Story Brand, how to build a story brand. Really have you read that one?
Yes, I have.
What did you think of that one then?
I really enjoyed that, and that's by Donald Miller, isn't it? And I just think
right.
he has. It's a great way of telling his own story within the book, and I think the things that he sort of advocates are really easy things to implement once you kind of understand what he's driving at. I think, I can do that. I can change that piece of copy on my website to read slightly differently, and I think once you've kind of got that in your head, it's something that you come back to again and again every time you're writing something for your audience.
So true. So true. So true. And actually, I was only having a conversation this morning, and that thing of don't tell people the what and the how, tell them the why. That's all people really care about, isn't it? And some of those core principles we know, we just don't always do. So seeding that insight continuously, you kind of need to keep your hand in on learning to even just tell you what you already know. It's a reminder. That is so valuable in and of itself. So Story Brand, brilliant. What else? Profit First by Mike McCalloway.
Another great one.
Another great one. Completely shifted perspectives around financial management, which was brilliant. The One Thing, have you read that?
No, I haven't.
The One Thing, that's a brilliant book. It is, obvious from the title maybe, just getting you to really focus on one thing, really get focused and clarify. And I think we started it out at the beginning of the year, and It's so true, isn't it? We get distracted, we try and do too much, try and keep it simple. What's that one main goal, and how do you avoid those distractions? How do you stay on that path? How do you keep, nudging towards that? How do you review all your priorities and make sure that that is taking you in that direction? I think that's valuable for anyone, anywhere, isn't it?
Yeah. But I
could go on anyway
sure.
about books. So I'll stop there.
But what I really love about your description of your group is the fact that you don't just read the books or the blinks, but you encourage people to actually implement it and then come back and tell people what they've done. I think that accountability piece is so important, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah, if you don't act, if you don't take action on what you've learned, it seems a waste, kind of what's the point? So, but all of us, we're all the same. We get busy, you've read something, then moments later you're on to something else. So that constant nudge, I very much say that another phrase I always use is nuggets and nudges. So nugget of insight, just take some little bite-sized bits, and then nudges for action, just little nudges, little reminders, just keeps you kind of progressing, taking little steps forward, because it's those little steps that ultimately lead to those big leaps, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you've kind of got to keep kind of chip away at it. So yeah, we've just started to really ramp up on success stories, and I think that's really valuable as well, isn't it? Because you take the action, you want to share the result, like what impact does that have? Because it spurs other people on. There's that piece of FOMO a little bit, isn't there, when there's people are taking action? It's like, well, they're doing something with it, bugger, I should as well, I need to do something here. And then equally, oh god, they've had success. So I think you can use that positively. I think that helps within a community environment to motivate each other.
Yeah, definitely. So if anybody listening is interested in Read to Lead and would like to find out more, what's the best way to contact you, Sarah?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Sarah Clayton-Jones. You can find me on there. But the URL for Read to Lead is readtoleadcommunity.com. So there's information on the website, and I have the community offering, but I also do the same program in businesses and build communities within teams in businesses. So the same concept, helping develop teams. So that's also maybe of interest to some people.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, and best of luck with Read to Lead. It sounds like it's going from strength to strength.
Thank you, Liz.
So I hope it continues to grow in the next year or so.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me on. It's been really, really lovely to chat with you, Liz.
Thanks for listening to Small Business Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.